Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am here today with Tammy Lee Anderson, who has had three near-death experiences, one of them when she was a baby, and one of them where she saw Jesus. I'm so excited to get into your story today. Thank you for joining me, Tammy.
Thank you, Melissa, for inviting me on your show.
Of course. I'll just start by asking you if you could share about your first near-death experience when you were a baby.
Okay. Well, I actually didn't remember these near-death experiences. I had two before the age of one. I was actually born dead and then stillborn. But I didn't remember these two until I was 17 years old. But I lived with the experience of it, which is interesting because as I look back, I had all the sensitivities of somebody who would have had that experience. But I did fully remember and re-experience them at the age of 17, and I can tell you about how that happened. But I was born stillborn. My my I was actually born 2 months premature. My mom had picked up a heavy basket of laundry and caused herself to go into labor. And so 38 hours of really hard labor, and I got stuck in the birth canal. Maybe more information than we need to know, but I was flat as a pancake and couldn't breathe because the cord was wrapped around my neck. So I was purple and flat when I came out, and uh, they said sorry she didn't make it. And my mom was like devastated, and I remember feeling the emotion of my mom. And my mom, I have to say that it felt like my mom's pull was like a beacon of light, like I was in bliss, and I remember this incredible love. And yeah, I have to say these near-death experiences are very seamless because there is no death. It's just, I'm here and I'm here. And what I was experiencing is just love. Anyways, they took me into a room and got me going, and I felt the panic of everybody, kind of rushing around. More so on the second one, but the first one I just felt there's so much peace. And then they brought me back. I was immediately put into an incubator, which is a small little bubble so I could breathe, and hooked me up to all these machines. So my parents never got to actually hold me or touch me for 2 months. So everything was procedural, and they were looking through a window once a week. They got to look through a window, and I was way in the back in the corner. So quite different today, because even in those days, preemies usually died. And so it was quite a miracle that I even made it through that. But the doctors were really good, and it was a small hospital, but they did a good job. So the second one, um, I had I was needing to go for surgery at about little less than 6 months, so probably around 5 months. And the surgery was the soft spots in the head had closed. So the fontanelles had closed, the head couldn't grow. So I was going to either die or be just severely incapacitated, most likely die. So they had to do the surgery, which meant they would cut, the head open and then create space. And um, they I was so tiny because I only weighed 4 pounds when I was born and went down to 3 pounds. And even at a few months old, 5 months old, the weight still wasn't there, and they gave me anesthesia that ended up stopping my heart. And so they had to do emergency procedures to get that heart going. And I remember on that one just being not, I had the clear feeling of not wanting to go back into that tiny little body. And I felt I was surrounded by light beings. And it was just so peaceful, and I felt they were familiar, that I was home, and I had no wanting or desire to go back into that little form. And then uh, I had the surgery again. They did that a few months later, and they were successful. Now, the interesting thing about that one was I didn't have a near-death experience, but I had an in-between experience. I was in between when they were doing these surgeries, and absolutely am clear they used hardly any anesthesia because I felt everything. And I felt terror, and the contrast between the terror and the love is hardly, you can't even put it into words because it was such contrast. And I was going into just going home and being in peace, and then being, you know, it was terrible because the room was cold. I was shivering and shaking. I was just, everything was shaking, and they had me tied to this table. It was just terrible. I shouldn't describe it because it was so bad, but it really was terrifying. And that memory was held into my physiology, which was quite interesting to deal with all my life. That fear. Um, but the smells of the operating room, the lights, and I've always been sensitive since I was small to lights and smells and those sensitivities. Were you too? Because I
Yes.
the smell, I am super sensitive to light and smell
Yeah.
and noise, and so I live a quiet
Yeah.
life, and I've always have, you know. So how these memories came back. So the third one, the third experience, even though wasn't a near-death experience, it was an out-of-body experience, in and out, and it was better when I was out, and because I was safe and I was being held in love. And so how I remembered these is I was always attracted to the quiet. It was just like my safe place. And even in my bedroom, I had a little closet. I would hang out there just as much as I could because I liked small spaces and I felt like I was breathing. I could hear my breath and it was still. And I was seeking that stillness again and that home feeling and that peace feeling. And this world was quite overwhelming. The sounds of people's voices with aggression and the conditional love I found very challenging. And it was like, so at 17, I was hanging out in a church. It was a Catholic church at the time. It was near my house. And I liked to go there when there was nobody there. And so I'd hang out in the back, and I loved the smell of the place because it had just enough incense, that was not overwhelming, but it aired out by then. But I could smell the whiff of it. It was kind of like in the walls, and so the sweet smell, and then the candles were always burning, and just the quiet, and there was a sacred feeling there. And so I would just hang out there as much as I could. I'd go over there. And one day there was a priest he was dusting, and he said, I see you here often. What are you coming here for? And I said, I don't know. I just like the quiet. I couldn't verbalize what I was looking for because what I experienced was beyond words, but I was yearning for that again. And so he said, can I pray for you? And I said, okay. And I thought he would say a prayer and be gone. And I didn't really know what to expect. But when he laid his hands on my head, I felt this warmth, felt like honey, like just this warm feeling go all the way through to my body. And then it just settled in my solar plexus. And then it felt like an explosion of re-experiencing all of it. So I experienced that. I've experienced memories from when my mom was pregnant, her fear because I was born in that time, it was a kind of a shameful thing. So I felt her shame of conceiving me before she was married. They got married real quick, and then it blew the secret when I was born 2 months early. So there was a lot of fear and angst with my mom, and I could feel the challenge in my dad because yeah, I can't say too much because my parents are still alive, and I want to say, um, I wouldn't change one thing in my life. Um, I love my parents dearly, and me and my father we had a challenge all our life, and I wouldn't change a thing because it's made me who I am. And so, yeah, it's perfect. And all the things that I considered imperfect for so long, no, I wouldn't change it. So let's see. So where was I? There's so much going on here. Do you have any questions for that part so far?
Oh, yes. If I could ask you some questions about your first two, and then for
I'll
those
go to the
listening,
third experience. Yeah.
yeah, just hang on for the third experience because it's amazing.
Yeah.
Who mentioned the light beings in your second NDE that felt familiar to you? Do you
Yeah.
have any idea who they were? Thank you so much for watching. As a way to show my gratitude, I am continuing to offer my one-on-one sessions almost 75% off what they were. I personally love offering the lower prices, and you guys do too because you've been booking up my sessions and supporting me, which I so much appreciate. My spots are limited to 6 sessions per week, and they fill up extremely fast. So don't wait, book your spot today. You can sign up for a 25-minute energy healing, a 45-minute energy healing and spiritual coaching session, or you can pick a custom session and we can fit the session to meet your needs. We can just talk. Some people just want to talk about deconstruction because they don't have anybody else to talk to. I am here for it. I love meeting you guys face to face and getting to spend some time with you, and I am here to serve you. Book your session here. Now back to the show.
No, I don't. I don't have any idea who they were. I just felt like I knew them forever.
Mm.
And yeah, I still don't know who they are. But I feel like they're always there with me now. I feel like they've always been with me. And I've never felt, not even one time in my life, alone, which is quite amazing, I think, because many people talk about feeling alone, and I've never felt that. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just know that they love me, and I love them, and I know I've known them forever. So I do believe I can tell that in the third near-death experience. There's I'll tell you that part when I get to the third one.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you said that you've never felt alone because I think a lot of people do experience feeling isolated and alone
Yeah.
in this lifetime. Do you
Yeah.
have any advice for people, I guess, on how to maybe connect with those beings on the other side?
I don't think there is another side. Um,
Mm.
they're here. They're with us. They're within us. There is no over there. It's all here. If we it's a vibrational alignment. And how I attune is through my breath and being still. And I don't reach out. I reach in. So there is really no reaching. I just settle in. That's a better word for it. There's no reaching out. There's no extension for some God in the sky or some angel in the sky. It's a settling in, a tuning into that presence that I am, and then there is only one really. But it's breathing into that center, breathing into that. It's settling into that. It's attuning to that. Ah, there you are. Breathing into that. Yeah. That's as close as I can get to putting it into words.
And I think that you're putting it into words very well, but I can also feel it in you embodying this in your energy
Yeah.
because you feel so peaceful and present, and I can hear that and feel that coming through when you talk about it.
Yeah. It's there. Yeah. It's there here. There is no there.
That's
It's
the secret. When you
yeah.
said that, when I said how to connect with those beings on the other side, and you said there is no other side, it was like, oh yeah, that's the key right there.
That's the key. And then on my book, I put let me read it. I was, um, the door has always been within, and the key has always been love. I put that as, yeah, yeah.
I
So,
love that. I need to buy your book.
yeah. You want to see? I just
Yes.
finished it in August.
Oh, I love it. Okay, I'm gonna buy it and read it.
And so let me just answer to all the people, because I've a couple of times I'm a very private person. I'm not an extrovert. I have no desire for attention, fame, or fortune. It's just not me, and I don't care about any of this. And so, but a couple people were saying, most of the 99.9% of the people are enjoying sharing and wanting more from me, and so I am responding to that. And I wrote a book is because people were requesting it.
Mm.
After I did the first interview with Suzanne Giesman, people said, "Where's your book? Are you going to write a book?" And so I decided after a year or so that I would work at it. I don't think that the world needs another book. It's all been said and before, and we stand on the shoulders of many wise teachers. And I'm not that. I'm just me. But sometimes if it's said in a certain way, then people hear it, and so I have stepped out a little bit from the quiet, and here I am. And I find myself with a book. And people say, "Oh, the only reason you're sharing your story is because you want to sell a book." Well, that's true. I wouldn't be doing this. I can tell you that you make $1 or $2 on a book. So making a book is not, you're not going to get rich on a book. And so that's not my motivation. It is true that I wrote a book with all my heart and all my love. And I'm covering things and through stories because stories of my life, how to invite the people who read it into their own story. So there's many times in the writing that I pause and I give an invitation to pause and reflect on your own story. And many people say it's like walking with a companion or friend or something. And I love that because that's how I intended it. It's very written in a very poetic way because I find that these experiences touching into this is beyond words. In fact, words get in the way. So
Mm.
it comes across very poetic and almost like a song. So it's written in a very song way. Mostly I wrote it in 3 o'clock in the morning when I was in a trance state. So it's being very well received, and I am honored to offer it to people who want to read it. And but I'm not selling it. And the reason why is because in the mean that I am selling it by telling my story, but I'm not doing it for the sell. I'm doing it for love. And
Mm.
if you want to question that, that's okay, but I know what I'm doing this for. And I have to say being in public eye is leaves you very vulnerable because you know, and yeah, I know I just a little bit of your story with the Christian. I have family that's part of my family is very conservative Christian, and they want to hit me over the head with this. It's like it's used as a weapon, and so, anyways, I shouldn't talk more about that, but I want to say that this is my offering, and if it touches one heart, then I've touched the whole.
Mm.
And I know I work one-on-one with people every day, and I know that when I'm present with one, I'm present with all. We don't have to touch millions of people. In fact, different publishers want to say, what kind of media you want? I'm barely on a media, and I could care less to be on a media, social media. And it's not about numbers, it's about the quality of presence with who's in front of you right now. you know, if it be your husband, if it be your wife, if it be your child, be there, right there with them, 100%. And you're touching into the essence of God right there. And so we touch the whole by touching one. And so if someone reads this book and is touched, then I've it's done its work. So, but I
Thank
share it
you.
with love. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I think it's so important to for people to hear your heart on that. And
Yeah.
I just have to re-emphasize something you just said. It's about the quality of your presence, and touching into that is touching the essence of God. That
Yes.
is the answer to the question that everybody asks about how can I experience God's presence?
Yes.
That is it right there. You summed it up so beautifully.
Absolutely. Because people often say, well, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? It's like, do what you want. Do what brings you joy. And if you're I know family members that love to clean with joy. Do what you want. It doesn't matter what you do. It matters who you are in the doing. Be present. I'm so lucky this past month. I thought to myself, I need some young helpers in my garden. I have a beautiful Zen garden I created over 30 years.
Wow.
And it's getting overwhelming, to do it all myself anymore. And I thought to myself, I need some young, strong youngsters to come in here and help. I was moving a rose bush this week, and these three young men, boys, came, I call them, they're very young. They're not out of high school yet. They came by and they started helping me take the rose bush out. And I said, "Do you want a job?" And they said, "Yes." So now I have three helpers, and it's such a joy because these little interactions to interact with with the young people and their excitement and we're doing gardening together. That's touching the face of God. It's not what you're doing, it's what and these these guys are singing and they're joking with each other and fooling around and it's just like this is what it's about, you know. When I was in graduate school, I was doing a master's degree in kinesiology, and you're overloaded with papers and and obligations, writing and lots of writing in graduate school, and timelines, and so you're always rushed. You always have that pressure there. And I remember one day, Dr. Francis, I'll never forget him. He's in his 70s. He was a kinesiology professor for, I think, 40 years. And that was his life. A beautiful man. And he pulled me to the side and we were in his office and he was just talking and telling stories and he was just going on and on. And I was thinking, I got these appointments and I got to go and then I just all of a sudden I realized I settled back and I started listening to his stories and I said, this is what it's about. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's like this is it. And I listened to him over for probably an hour and a half of his stories, and he just talked away. And I'll never forget that. That was a beautiful day, a beautiful memory to spend that time with him. And we rushed through our lives thinking that, it's that, it's that, it's that. It's like, no, it's right here, right now.
Mm.
It's whoever's right in front of you. And I mean, that is for when I look back at all the studies in graduate school, it has nothing to do with any of the papers I wrote, any of the, grades I got. It was a memory of sitting in his office and listening to his stories. You know,
Wow.
he
What
was
amazing.
he was a national champion wrestler, and he had he has tons of grandkids. And he liked to talk about them, and it really is the simplest things. We think it's something grand, but the grandness is in the simple things of everyday interactions. Like the post office. I have a postman. I know his name is Reggie, and I greet him every day. And it's in the little everyday any actions that we touch the face of God, and
Wow.
that's reflected in Yeah, it's like looking into a mirror. There we are. There I am. So, do you want to hear about the third near-death experience?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, again, I was always attracted to the silence and I loved going in nature. And I pushed it pretty hard. I was if the ascetic life, I was very attracted to mysticism, and I would not call myself I don't like the titles of all this stuff, but I was very attracted to the mystics. And anyway, so I was fasting, overdoing it, and I hadn't eaten in a week, and I had not drink enough water. And where I was in the mountains, it was very hot, and so I was hiking, and I just would go in the mountains often and pray and meditate, and I found a lot of peace in nature, and I just collapsed, and I was out of my body immediately. And I was back home. I was back in that peace that I'd been seeking all my childhood. And one thing that I remember listening to your story about the depression, childhood depression. I had childhood depression all my life. And it was this something's missing, this angst, this like hole in me. Like it was like, where did it go? Where did God go? Where did love go? This is not it. People say I love you, and it's like that's not love. That's conditional. And so um, I was quite depressed. And anyways, I wasn't depressed in this at this moment, but I was in the mountains, and I went out of my body, and I was immediately in the light, and I was going towards this time, other than the other first two, I don't remember a tunnel. I just remember being in the light. This one, it was like a tunnel, but with tunnel with no, it was infinite space on all around. It was like there was no edges to it. And I was going towards this incredible, peaceful light that's hard to put into words, but when I just even um, sink into it, I kind of go into it, because it's so there. It's not anywhere, it's here. It's like I just, it's a state, it's a vibrational state, and it's just, anyways, it was more love, like the best hug, the best embrace a million times over, and it was just drawing me towards the light. And then it was interesting because it was like, I would, it's hard to say numbers, but it was like thousands, maybe millions of these other souls going towards the light. And it was like being in a river of souls going, all were going towards this light. So it was like, the river is one. It's not like individual, but I was saying individual, but one, like it was both. And how I was seeing that was each soul was a different color and different vibration. And each color had a different vibration and a different color, but all was going towards this light, being held in this light. Because it's like you're going into the light, but you're being held in the light at the same time, being held in love. And and it's like nothing is solid, and everything is permeable. So that's why when I say river, it feels like permeability. It's like there's no edges to it. It's just, it goes through every aspect of your being, and it's just love. And then my grandfather I saw the back of a person in front of me, and I said, Papa, because I recognized him as my grandpa. And he had died several years before. And it was just phenomenal. It's more than telepathic. The experience is soul to soul. And I find words such a barrier to real communications. And I think that words get in our way. That's why, a hug is worth more than, I love you. It's like, feel it, you know? And so when I hugged my grandfather, it was just like he was a very quiet man. And I mean, I really seriously don't remember too many sentences this whole life. He was that quiet. But I always just loved him. I loved to hang around with him. He loved to tinker on little watches and stuff, and I'd tease him. And because it was very temperamental, and but that reunion was just amazing. It was like a blending, and there was nothing unknown. It was just this like, if you, the best way I can describe it is if I was a bunch of particles and he was a bunch of particles and they all blended together, and it was all one, and it was just amazing. And so then I asked him, I said, well, okay, so um, I've heard a lot of stories about Jesus. Have you met him? Because I want to know the real deal. And as soon as I said that, I was looking into the eyes of Jesus, and his presence was overwhelming love. It was just unbelievable love. And I was going into that, and it really, really is super, super hard to put into words, that kind of love. And so I get kind of stuck here, but uh, I knew him, and he knew me, and there was only love, unconditional love. And a couple people on said, well, what did he look like? There, what I experienced in him was formlessness. It wasn't a form that I was experiencing. I was experiencing the formlessness, the essence of him going through me. And yeah, it was a blending that was really unbelievable. I mean, incredible. Um, I was aware, I'm trying to put it so people can understand. I was aware of looking into his eyes, but if I had to describe his eyes, I couldn't because there's no words to the depth that I was seeing, was experiencing. I mean, I've tried several times to paint some of this. It doesn't even come close. There's not even colors that come close, and so I get frustrated because like it doesn't even come close. And so there aren't the colors and the it's like ecstasy on top of ecstasy, and exploding. Um, and then and then this being of light, because I was going into that love and I had no intention of coming back. I mean, I was like, that's the real essence. And this being of light, beautiful being of light, pulled me to the side. And I can't say female or male. I have a thought about who that was, and I'll say it in a minute. But I started asking questions, like all the questions I had wondered about. Why do people suffer? And why is a baby, abused? And why do these things happen? All the things we wonder about the world. And I had more questions than I even thought I had, because I'd get a question out and I was starting with my words. And then all of a sudden I realized every time I thought it, I would get the answer. And then it started going faster and faster and faster. And then it was all of a sudden this explosion of darts of light coming into my being. And it felt like each dart of light was understanding, information, but more than even that, it was like, it felt like a download of consciousness that was just like, um, yeah, ecstasy on top of ecstasy and exploding. And then, um, like exploding into that. And then I just remember all of a sudden being snapped back into my body. And I didn't have any awareness of anybody asking me to come back. And I have thoughts about that. They would have got a big fight from me if they would have tried. And so I think they wanted to avoid that, maybe. I don't know. But um, I always just snapped back. And what snapped me back was the awareness of a horse in my ear. And I'm not a horse person, but this horse, and I found that this horse was over the next hill. Later on, I was like, where is that horse? But the horse was like breathing in my ear, and I could hear him go, you know, and it was really interesting. And so it got my attention. And what I found was, um, what I have found since then is that in my meditations, it's been very pointed out clearly that what we focus on is what we experience. And you can be in that bliss state, and then all of a sudden, if you focus your attention, that's what you experience. It's like, whoo, there you are. And so I talk about this to people. It's like, be mindful, aware of where your attention is, because that's what you're going to experience. I kind of say, be mindful of who you set at your table for very long, because that's what you're going to start to digest. That's what you're going to start to manifest. That's what you're going to experience. It's like where your focus is that's what you're going to experience. That's what you're going to live. So if I'm focused on something negative, that's why I'm quite careful about um, how much I digest with social media and all that stuff, because it's programming, and I have a different uh, place I want to hang out. I don't want to be and we're all we've as beautiful light beings, we've all incarnated into a lineage, a story. And here we are trying to be the light within that story and raise the vibration a little bit so that we can continue to grow into the light that we are. And we're, um, but yeah, that's going off in a whole different direction. So let me just tell you that the person that took me to the side, I believe is me. I believe that that was actually me, that beautiful being, the essence of me without a character role, wrapped up in a character role. And so that was the essence of me that decided not to argue with me, just send me back. So, but me, it be me, it's not as hard black and white as we think. It's there really truly is only one essence, and what we see we are experiencing. It's yeah. Anyways, so that's the third near death experience. So you can ask questions if you want from that one. Anything
Thank
come to mind?
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. You you had that part of your experience where you were able to ask lots of questions and receive information.
Hmm.
Do you remember what any of those answers were that you received?
I received a lot on suffering, because that's what I was asking, like why are people suffering, and and other things. And then other things I have to say I don't remember yet. They're there, I know,
Mm.
but maybe they'll come when the time is to remember. But as far as the suffering, I understood clearly that everything is perfect. Believe it or not, um, we've designed this experience um, perfectly, because we have here the ability to have contrast. And through the challenges in our life, we become, uh, we, we incarnate love in a depth that couldn't otherwise be experienced or expressed. Because how would you know what compassion feels like if you've never experienced loss? Or, how would you know if, you know, you just wouldn't have any depth. I've always thought I'd never want to meet the person that had no dysfunction in their family at all because they'd have this much compassion, this much, ability to relate, and so the challenges in our life, I can't think of one challenge in my life that I would change at this point because it's made me who I am. It's given me the depth and the experience of love in action. Can I even forgive this? Can I even love this? Will I love this? Can I say yes to this? Sometimes my no arises, of course, and I experience even that no. And then I grow into my yes. And
Mm.
so without that contrast, we wouldn't have that opportunity to bring depth to love. And so I do believe also that I do know also that what we do in our lives, how we express and experience love and not love is expanding the whole and depth of love. That light that we are attracted to is us. It's the one I am. We are that which we seek. And so the depth and the beauty of that love and light has been forged through contrast. Otherwise, it would be just an idea. This is the real deal. I know that deeply that we are the death and resurrection. We're the living resurrection. And what amazes me the most is to be around human beings that are still standing after such experiences as losing a son or losing a child. Or I get, to be with people daily who have lost children by suicide or lost a spouse by, they just had a heart attack all of a sudden and they're gone. Um, so the depth of that is we're expanding the light. We are the light. We're expanding the depth of love by just living this life. So people often say, what's my purpose? Well, your purpose is to be you, uniquely you. You're a unique face of God in all the world, in all eternity, and be that. Be who you are. Don't try to be anybody else. Be you, uniquely you, a divine being of light expressing in an incarnation and a program. And what will you rewrite in that program? How will you write the program? How will you incarnate, choose? I don't know. I'm just babbling probably now.
That was beautifully said. And this is a really tough topic and tough question to answer. But when I talk about this, whenever I talk about this, like the purpose of suffering, why we experience suffering for our soul growth and being able to experience the contrast, a lot of times people will respond with, well, what about babies suffering, innocent animals, just
Yeah,
things that like where is the soul growth for them in that? Because
yeah.
I'm
So
wondering if
some of
you
the most
have any.
horrific things they
Yeah.
want to bring up, and it's like, yeah, and on a human level, it doesn't make sense, and it's not supposed to, because on a human level, our task is to bring as much love and peace and reconciliation as possible. So on our human level, it's like, no way does it make sense. And but on a soul level, if we sink into that, it's like, oh yeah, I see the bigger picture. So it's levels of seeing and understanding that the suffering that we go through in this life is not without purpose, is not without opportunity to deepen our ability to love. So I guess what I'm saying is there's opportunities in all this to choose love, even in the most worst challenging things. Like I don't know if you've ever read Viktor Frankl's Search for Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes.
And he's in a concentration camp. I mean, it's like the worst of the worst. And what people can do. And even in those circumstances, people would share a cigarette, or share a piece of bread, or, there's Father Colby is known for when they were taking 10 men out of the group and they were going to starve them to death. And one of the men was crying because he said, I want to be with my family and all this news. And so Father Colby said, take me instead of him. And so he starved, they got starved to death. But it's like an act of love in the midst of such, and so everything is, it makes sense on a bigger level. And even in these most horrific things, I've heard some amazing, terribly stories over the years from people, and it's like, but the act of love in between, even from some of the most hardened uh, 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 people that were so lost by people who tortured people. There was a gentleman in China who his torturer was actually his heart turned a little bit by this man because he he embodied a sense of forgiveness and love. And it was so profound that the guy that tortured him was moved. I mean, my gosh, you bring somebody out of such a depth of darkness into a little bit of light. I mean, so, everything is relative. We want to impose, our idea of this and that on a person's life. We don't know what they're going through in their suffering, and the opportunities that they're being given again and again to choose love. And it makes me think when I had a really bad spine injury from a car accident, I was told I'd be a quadriplegic. And they said, oh, you need surgery and all the fear stuff, you need surgery immediately. You're going to be in a wheelchair. Fear, fear, fear. And I bought into a lot of it because I was in a lot of pain and the pain was going down into my feet. So it was even hard to walk, hard to sleep. I'd be pacing at nighttime because I couldn't sleep. So I'd just be meditating as I'm walking, trying to calm myself down because it's that much pain. It's a 10 level pain when you want to be out of yourself. And uh, what I found is there's resistance increased the pain, the fear increased the pain. And so my meditation at that point was to realize when the mind says this is never going to end, it's going to get worse, the fear rises, and it's like, oh, I just want it to stop. This feels, really bad. To even bless that and to breathe into that and find the space into that. And so what I found is everything changes. Nothing ever stays the same. Everything is in movement. And so I found the pain would get worse and it would get better. Get worse and it would get better. So the idea that it would stay the same and it's never going to change or it's going to get worse, it was not true. What I found is if I breathed into it, the pain would get less and then it would get really, really bad. And then I'd start to tighten up and I'd breathe into it. And so I found peace and quiet in between. And even when it got really high, I found it was almost irrelative at a certain point. It was just background noise. And I just kept going into the stillness and kept going back, returning to the stillness. And that was the challenge of all of it. By the time I got back to this neurosurgeon, uh, he took another MRI getting ready for surgery. And he said, what did you do? He said, in 30 some years, I've never seen anything like this. And he said, you don't even need to come back. It was all healed. So the neck was healed. And I do believe that it was healed by breathing in the light, breathing the light, that essence, and letting that rise because the body, the mind, its natural state is moving towards health and wellness and lack of distortion, I guess you'd say. It's direction is love. Its direction is health. Its direction is peace. And we often get in the way of that. So the slowing down, the breathing, um, and the not reaching or grasping, the not pushing and pulling, as Ram Dass would say, um, this just settle in.
Yeah. Can you describe for people what that settling in is like? You've mentioned it a couple times.
Yeah. It's kind of beyond words. It's the best I can do. Okay, try this. See if you like this, Melissa. Um, Imagine you're breathe, just breathe in and breathe out and feel your chest rise and fall as you breathe. Changing your breath in any way, not trying to change it, just observing your chest rise and fall. And now imagine you're breathing through your skin, breathing through every cell in your skin, and feel the fluidity of that. It's like there are no boundaries, there are no edges. Breathing through your head, nothing is as solid as it appears. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathe into the spaces in between, into that aspect of you that's never been born and will never die. Feel the fluidity and the expansiveness of that. Breathing in and breathing out. There you go. It's beyond words. Breathing into the peace. Breathing out peace. Breathing in love. And breathing out love. Breathing into that stillness that you are right there. I am. We don't need a near-death experience to experience who we are. We are that which we are seeking. We are. We are. I am. Peace be with you always. Breathing in love and breathing out love. Feeling the fluidity of that. Nothing is as solid as it appears. breathing into that aspect of you that has never been born and will never die. You are love. And now slowly, slowly, holding on to that deep peace within, which is you, begin to bring yourself back into the present moment in perfect attunement and alignment with your soul and with love. Feeling alive and whole and well, energized. It's all a play of the light. Mhm.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for guiding us through that.
You're welcome.
There's such a deep peace in that space.
And it doesn't take like hours to do this. I mean, meditation for me at this point is just a breath. It's in between every moment, that praying unceasingly in a sense, where you bring yourself off to cushion and do it every day. So when we have our challenges through the day, we just breathe in and we breathe out and breathe that stillness back into the present moment. We slow it down, and it's really a quick way to attune to your higher organization. Uh, yeah, the balancing it out,
Yeah.
because we can get lost in our stories, right? And so,
Yes.
just the practice of throughout the day, breathe. Yeah,
Yeah, it really is so much more simple. I think people picture, oh, I
yeah,
have
really
to
simple.
meditate for 30 minutes a day, which if you can, that's
It's
amazing. But
beautiful. Yeah, I love to. But you don't need to be a monk on a mountain. I mean, I spent many years in monasteries. There over 13 years in convents, and so one of the things that happened after my near-death experience, the third one, is I started thinking I wanted to live with in a religious life and communities. So I searched and searched for communities. I did active communities where I was serving the poor in many areas of the world, and then I also lived in a hermitage in a monastery for a year, and that was my favorite because I was just in quiet.
yeah,
And so I'm very attracted to community life where just you live in silence, you eat in silence, you walk in silence, you pray in silence, and that's my nature. It's not everybody's nature. So, but I've never felt so much. The one thing I noticed about like people like Dalai Lama or different people, different amazing teachers that I've had the opportunity, there was laughter. There was like laughter of a little kid, just this giggling. And I have to say, when I was in these, like especially the monastery, I felt so much laughter like a little kid. I was just always giggling. That's when you kind of know, that when that childlike essence comes out in you, and it's like you're in alignment with your soul's direction, you know. And so anyways, yeah.
Tammy, thank you so much for everything that you've shared.
You're
And
welcome.
I would love to ask you if you could share with people where they can find your book and anything else that you have going on that you want people to know about.
So my book is available on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble, everywhere. It's all over the world, so you can get it everywhere. You can get it off my website as well, so you can order it from there. And my website is healingwellness.com, and that's been my name since 1999 when I first got a website, and I was doing structural body work for people. So yeah, so. And I do offer three services. I do mediumship, and then I do healing sessions with people, and then I do mentoring. And that's basically whatever direction you want to take it in your life, we can go. I can walk there side by side as you're walking through some of the challenges in your life, or whatever, if you want to look into spirituality on a deeper level. But I love all three. Each one has a very unique experience. And the mediumship, I never in the world thought I would be doing mediumship. Never, never. And all the things I've done in my life have coalesced into such a beautiful offering. Um, I do drawings, and I don't take any credit for these drawings. In fact, I gave John, he's in spirit, credit in the front of the book. But I was doing a reading for a mom in Washington, and I was just doodling. I've never taken a drawing class in my life. I've never, uh, I painted when I was 18, but not sketching, and I've never learned how to draw faces, anything like that. So this wasn't in my repertoire, I thought. But anyways, I was just doodling because you really have to do mediumship, you have to get out of the way. Just like healing. It's not about we think we're healers. We're not. Healing is the energy that flows through us, but we're not the ones doing anything. We're just getting the best healers are the ones that know how to get out of the way. And all we're doing is creating conditions for healing to happen. All healing truly is self-healing. Whether you're getting a surgery, whether you're taking a pill,
Yeah.
all healing is self-healing. It has nothing to do with the person except they're attempting to create the best of their ability to get out of the way, conditions for the healing support team, basically,
Hmm.
for your healing to happen. So the same in mediumship. You have to become zero. You get out of the way. And so I approach mediumship kind of like I do my martial art. I've been a 50-degree black belt in Aikido. I've been doing martial arts for over 44 years. And Aikido means the way of harmony. So it's about flowing with the energy
Hmm.
and redirecting it into a harmonious place, harmony for both, rather than, taking somebody's head off. It's flow. How can we both find a safe place and harmony in this where there's off balance? Anyways, so I approach the mediumship by being zero, approach the healing by being zero, empty. And the same thing with martial arts, you have to be empty. If you're thinking about a technique when, a punch is coming at your face, it's too late. You're going to get punched in the face. So you can't be
Yes.
thinking. You can't be up here. You're in the flow, just like any athlete that's, in the zone. That's kind of like what I'm talking about. You're in the zone, you're in the flow, and you're not in your mind. If you're in the mind, you're not there. It's not going to work. And so anyways, so I was doing this reading, connecting with this lady's son, and I was doodling on my paper to get myself in a no mind state. And he said to me, turn the paper over and start again and let go. I said, oh, okay. So I turned the paper over, and this beautiful portrait came out. And his name's John, and he was a portrait artist in this life. And so when I'm doing readings, I get sometimes 60 to 70% of the time, not all the time, I get drawings of people, portraits. And the interesting thing is, on my website, I have a gallery, and you can go and look at different portraits that have been drawn, and then people send me a photograph afterwards, and I've got permission to put them on there. And so you'll
Wow.
see. It's really, really cool. Sometimes it's just a tilt of the head or the way the smile is going or the eyes. And sometimes I would say they're recognized, and then sometimes they're not. Sometimes they might be somebody we never even met, in this life. So I don't know. I don't know how it works. I'm just amazed more and more by all this every day. And I'm amazed by the information that comes across that has no other explanation, Suzanne would say. My friend, Suzanne Giesman, she would say, no other explanation. You just can't come up with this stuff. I mean, I could tell story after story of information that has come after the session that is just knock your socks off. Knocks my socks off anyways. But anyway, this is a picture in the book. I've got drawings in the back. This is the back part of the book, but like that's, and what I find interesting is they have different feelings.
Hmm.
They're not like cookie cutter,
Hmm.
and so anyway, so there's a few of them.
Those are beautiful.
Yeah. But I take no credit for this. I give this credit to John. He's working hard when I'm doing these sessions often. So I gave him credit in the beginning of the book. So anyway, so I love to work with people one-on-one, and I know that the gift for me is that when we touch one, we touch all. And
Yes.
so I thank you for this opportunity to communicate with you today, Melissa.
Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your presence and your experiences and your wisdom. And I will have your links in the description so people can find them. And the final question that I ask all my guests is if you could give one message to everyone on the planet. Sorry, my dog. But if you could give one message to everyone on the planet, what would it be?
Love each other. Love yourself from the inside out and let it flow out. Forgive, love, be kind. There are lots of challenges happening in this world now, and there's an attempt to divide. And I would say just come together and love each other. Love yourself. Don't buy into the program that's of the world. Buy into the program of your soul, which is the essence of love. That would be my pointing direction.
Thank you so much, Tammy.
You're welcome.